Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by Jocka Coaching, where you can save 20% off your monthly or annual membership using the promo code TPE. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am your host here in fabulous Las Vegas. Happy, as always, to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest-running poker strategy podcast. Well, week 3 is coming to a close here in Las Vegas, and it's been anything but fabulous so far. As of the time of this recording, Thursday morning, no live cashes to speak of thus far. Out of all the tournaments I've played since arriving here on May 31st, I've been playing well. I'm sure of it. I know that I am putting in my very best effort every single day. I know I did a ton of homework through Jocka Coaching and other sources. I watched a ton of videos. I practiced. I am prepared for this. However, the results have yet to show themselves at this point in the summer. Now, the good news is I am prepared. I did a ton of mental preparation, which of course included the possibility that I would have an exercise in futility for the first 3 weeks of the summer. I've been preparing for this all year, and I am frustrated. I'm willing to admit that it's hard for me to go through such a tough start. These first 3 weeks have been very hard. I believe that I'm making very good decisions. I know that I'm playing my A game pretty much every single day. I mean, obviously, for all of us, there's going to be a few hands that we'd like to have back, but I know that I am just running below average, and that is to be expected. Every time we play in a tournament, guys, we've got an 85% chance of losing, and that's if we are an average player. Perhaps in some of these fields, I'm not an average player. I think I might be above average in several of them, but still, I haven't had any results yet, and this is part of being a poker player. The good news for me, I do have other sources of income, and I do have so much more poker, another month of poker to play. So I believe I will right the ship. I believe that the poker gods will eventually smile upon me. Perhaps they're just saving it up so that I can be main event champion. The only way to get through a losing streak is to play through it. And so that's what I'm going to do. I did take the last 2 days off, but I'm back at it today. Thursday, I am playing the Millionaire Maker here at the WSOP. It's one of my favorite tournaments of the summer. I feel refreshed. I feel rested. I feel ready to get things going here in Vegas this summer. We've also got the Mystery Millions coming up soon, the main event next month. So many great online tournaments that I get to play. I'm blessed to be here. Sometimes it feels like a curse when you're losing, but just the fact that I have this opportunity to play in yet another WSOP is a blessing, and I've got to keep that all in perspective. So that's how it's going for me. I'm just trying to keep my mind straight and just do my best every day to play my best every day. So with that in mind, let's look at last week's strategy hand and run it through a solver. Let's see what the solver thinks of the play that I shared on last week's episode. Just to refresh your memory, this one comes from a $100 online 6-max event that I played on WSOP online. We are on the stone cold bubble. 41 players left in a tournament that pays 40 places. I have 116K in my stack, and the average is only 70K, so doing great with about 1.5x average in the stack. The blinds, 2K and 4K with a 500 ante per player. and we are 5-handed right now. The action folds to me on the button. I've got the 10 of clubs, 9 of diamonds, and I opted to open with this hand, just a min raise here off of a 30 big blind stack. We make it 8K, and the big blind makes the call. So we're going to be heads up in position in a single raised pot. Hero with 10-9 offsuit. And this open is, of course, non-controversial. The solver opens with this hand 100% of the time. We're actually supposed to open about 50% of all our hands, which the top 50% of the hands does include hands like 10-8, Jack-8, King-6, any ace, and any pair except for deuces. The solver doesn't open deuces on the button off 30 big blinds. So that is something I did not know, but I still would probably have opened with that hand at this point in the tournament because it's bubble time and I always open my range up a little bit on the button when I have an above average stack. So the big blind calls. He's got about the same stack. Actually, he's got me covered barely. And so we're heads up. Pot is about 20K, and the flop comes Jack of clubs, 8 of clubs, 6 of clubs, Jack 8, 6, all clubs, and I've got the 10-9 with the 10 of clubs. Big blind checks. I bet one big blind. I bet 4K into 20K, and villain made the call. So let's check this line from the solver, and it turns out this is a very mixed strategy, but my play is approved. 25% of the time we do this, about 25% of the time we check it back, and then we do different sizes, whatever. So yeah, this is a perfectly approved play as part of a mixed strategy. So now with 28,000 in the middle, and we both have tons of chips, over 100K behind, the turn comes the 5 of diamonds, and villain checks again. I decide to check it back. Okay, so I bet one big blind on the flop, and now I decided just to check it back on the turn, and my check back is approved 50% of the time. We are supposed to check it back, but we also can bet about half the pot, so something like 14K or so, the other half of the time. So the solver doesn't always bet, but when the solver bets, it's a half pot bet in this spot. So now I check it back, and the river comes the 4 of spades. So our final board is Jack 8, 6, 5, 4 with 3 clubs. And now all of a sudden, villain donk leads into us for 9,400, about a third of the pot. And I opted to bluff raise him to 32,000. So I roughly 3x, a little more, like 3.5x his bet. And he made the call with pocket sevens. So my question last week was, is this a punt, or do we ever turn our hand into a bluff facing this 1/3 bet on the river? And it turns out, guys, the solver folds our hand 86% of the time and bluff raises to the sizing I did the other 14% of the time. So although it's not the most common play, it is a solver approved play and therefore not a punt. So I feel vindicated by this and by so many other hands that I've checked my line on this summer. I know that I am playing well. And by the way, guys, what might influence your decision whether to put this particular moment into the 14% of the time that you're supposed to bluff raise? Well, I would like to do it against a more aggressive opponent. The type of guy who, when he sees weakness, he's going to try to pounce on it, maybe try to value bet top pair or something. And then, of course, he can't call my raise. He needs to have at least a straight, I think, to call this raise. Maybe some guys will look us up with a set once in a while. But yeah, if I have the type of opponent who would really only bet a 7 here, then of course we're not going to try to bluff him off of a straight, right? If I knew he had a straight, would I have made this play? Of course not. It's just that I thought he was perfectly capable of not having a straight or better here. And by the way, guys, I still think that. The fact that the results this time were that he happened to have the top of his range doesn't change my opinion on whether or not this is a good play. And it shouldn't change yours either. It's solver approved because it's plus EV. I just happened to run into it, as I have so many times this summer. All right, guys, we're going to do a new hand in a minute, but I want to let you know about something that's been going on Jaka Coaching. They've been doing daily hand history reviews. So there was a call for members of the site to send in their most frustrating hands from the large field tournaments, namely the Colossus and the Monster Stack, tournaments that have already happened and that so many of us probably have a hand or two that we might be questioning from. And they actually took Jeremy Menard. This guy is one of the top coaches on the site. He's amazing. He's so smart, so eloquent, and so good at explaining things. And he went basically through a hand history review of several spots that Jaka Coaching users found themselves in. I found this incredibly useful, so helpful to hear what a top coach would say about somebody's play, and maybe like, should we even get ourselves into this situation or not? It was incredibly insightful. And then for our members, it was basically like being able to walk up to a top pro in the hallway of Paris or Horseshoe and say, hey, I've got a hand I want to talk to you about that I played in the Colossus, and having that top pro stop and talk to you and explain how a world-class player would handle the spot. I mean, obviously this is incredibly invaluable. There are so many excellent features we've been talking about on this site. I want you guys to give it a try. You can have a 7-day free trial. And then, as mentioned, 20% off of your purchase, your membership, whether it's monthly or annual. Give it a try for free for 7 days. Guys, you're going to be so glad you tried this thing out. This site has been helping me so much. So give it a try. Jaka.poker/TPE. Once again, Jaka.poker/TPE. And just use that TPE also at checkout to make sure you get your 20% discount. All right, let's do another hand. So last week we did a hand from a $100 tournament. And in the interest of diversity, this week I've selected a hand from a $3,500 tournament. So this one comes from day 1A of the 5 million guaranteed at the Wynn, which of course is my favorite place to play. But you know what, guys, let's do something different this week. Instead of just doing one hand from this tournament, let's kind of talk through the whole story of my tournament. Spoiler alert, you guys already know I didn't make it into the money of this thing, but let's talk about the situation that I found myself in. I mean, already there were characters at my table, you know, a guy talking about all the different businesses he owns, just a textbook poker businessman. He loves to play. He enjoys the game. He knows a thing or two, but I promise you, he's not sitting around memorizing charts and watching videos with Jeremy Menard and Kevin Rabashow and Jaka himself on Jaka Coaching. This guy, he's a fun player. You know, he's there for a good time. And if he wins, he wins. But if not, he's not going to cry over $3,500. And right across from me was a guy who kind of reminded me of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He really looked like him. He was huge, first off. This guy was probably 6'10", I'm guessing. You know, big muscles, handsome guy with no hair, dark skin, and lots of jewelry. You know, he had like probably a $20,000 Rolex on. The type of person one might fully expect to encounter at the Wynn. So this is my table. And then everybody else kind of just maybe average, regular players, you know, skilled, but maybe not world beaters, you know, but guys that you kind of expect to encounter during the summer months in Vegas. So let's first talk about a hand that I played at the 501k level. I'm under the gun with the ace of spades, tray of spades, and I raised it off of a stack of 40,000. So I have 40 big blinds. I just made it 2K. Totally fine with me if you want to go 2,500. I think the solver wants to do 2,200 off of a stack of this size, or maybe under the gun we do a little smaller and then raise bigger when we're in position. But yeah, I think a normal size raise, 2K, is totally fine. And then the player I was just describing, The Rock, he makes the call on the button, and the blinds also call. So 4 of us see this flop: 5 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, tray of hearts. So 5, 4, tray with 2 diamonds. I've just got bottom pair and a gut shot to the bottom end of a straight. I do not have a backdoor flush draw. And the big blind leads out into everybody for 2,500. So he's one of these regs, he could have a lot of hands here. He could maybe have top pair. He could have a hand like 6-4. He could have maybe just a naked flush draw and he's trying to set a pretty low price, right? Because there are 4 of us in there. There's 11K in the middle. This guy's only betting 2,500 into everybody. So I'm not ready to fold my hand just yet. My intention is to be cautious against this player. He strikes me as fairly competent. But yeah, for that price, I can't fold a pair and a gut shot. I'm in. And the rock, as I'm going to call him, also called. And then the small blind folded. So 3 of us are still in on the turn, which pairs the board with the 5 of hearts. So our board is now 5-4 tray 5 with 2 diamonds and 2 hearts. And now the big blind checks to me. And I decide I don't want to try to bluff with bottom pair here at this point. I'm just going to check as well and see what the rock wants to do. And he checks as well. So we're going to see a free river, and that river is the king of hearts. So our final board, 5-4 tray 5 king with 3 hearts. So the backdoor flush came in, and now the big blind checks once more. So I think he probably doesn't have a whole lot going on. I check once more as well, and I think that when the rock checks behind, I'm going to turn over the winning hand a lot with my 2 pair ace kicker. But the big guy, he's not going to let us get away with it that easily. He bets 12,000 into a pot that now contains about 19,000, and the big blind folds his hand. So it's up to me, and I've got a decision to make. I kind of eyed him up. I looked at him. I'm trying to figure out what the rock is cooking, right? So I don't know. It felt like a bluff to me. I felt like this particular player, if he had had a flush draw on the turn, probably would have turned it into a bluff. I mean, the way this guy's been playing, he's definitely an amateur, but he's not scared. I mean, he's been betting and showing a lot of ridiculous hands. So in order for me to give this guy credit for a flush, I need to think that when 2 players checked to him on 4th Street, when he picked up that flush draw, he opted out of betting it. And I know that sometimes we should, but I also believe that this guy probably never has done that in his entire poker career. I think every flush draw he's ever had, he likely turned into a semi-bluff. So the question is he value betting with worse than a flush? Does he ever have a 5? I don't know. Maybe to get tricky, he checks back a 5 sometimes on the turn. It seems unlikely. Did he flop a straight and then turn it into a check back against 2 opponents with 2 different flush draws out there on the turn? All of this seems incredibly unlikely. I think at this point, this guy either has a king, which is certainly possible, or he's got nothing at all. So I decided to look him up because he doesn't have that many kings. How many kings does he have? I call, and the big guy mucks his hand. So that was a fun one for me because, look, it's anytime you can pick off a bluff and work things out logically, and then they actually don't show you the nuts, it just feels good, So that was great. I was actually doing really well in this tournament. I think we started with 50K, and at this point I had 90K or something. And then a really big hand came up. There was a player who joined my table late, a French guy that was kind of annoying me because he was just taking forever to make each and every decision as though he were playing the final table of the super high roller or something. I don't know what we're doing, guys. It's day 1. We're not even at dinner break yet. Can you just please act on your hand? That would be great. Anyway, he opens to 2,200, solver approved for sure. And then the rock called. And then the player on my right, who was actually the big blind in the previous hand, who I now know comes from Spain and is a professional player, he makes the call as well. And I'm sitting here on the button and I've got the queen of spades, queen of hearts. So it goes raise, call, call. And now hero on the button with the queen of hearts facing a 2,200 open. I decided to 3-bet, of course. Of course we're going to 3-bet. I make it 11,500 and everybody called. So now there's 50K in this pot and some of my opponents don't have that much in their stacks. The flop comes king of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, tray of spades. So king 7 tray with 2 diamonds. We've got the queen of spades, queen of hearts, so we don't have diamonds. And the Frenchie, he just goes all in for 17,800. Everybody else folds to me. So do I have to give him credit for a king or better when he leads into me? He doesn't check to the razor. I'm getting more than 3-1 on a call here. I just don't really believe in folding when we're getting this type of pot odds, and especially when there's such a good chance he's doing this with a hand like ace jack of diamonds. Maybe he could possibly have like 8-7 of spades where he's got middle pair and backdoor possibilities. I don't know what people do. I just can't fold my queens yet. So you guys can say that I'm a payoff wizard if you want to fold yours, but I called with mine, and sure enough, he turned over the king of hearts, jack of hearts to win this enormous pot and kind of kick me right back down to just a slightly above average stack. So a little bit later, the blinds went up to 600, 1,200, and that same French guy opens to 2,800 from third position, and the action folds all the way around to me in the small blind, and I've got the ace of spades, 10 of diamonds, so ace 10 offsuit, facing a raise from middle position. I think we can call with this hand, we can fold this hand, and we can 3-bet this hand. So I've got 54,000 in my stack, so just about 45 big blinds there. And I decided to go for the 3-bet. This French player does have me covered and has shown himself to be fairly loose, not crazy. You know, he's not like at the rocks level, but he's on the looser side of reasonable, let's just say. So I decided to go for the 3-bet, guys, and I made it 10,000 with 44K behind, and villain shoved. So obviously you had to fold ace 10 there. I'm not sure that I would have lost less had I called, by the way, from the small blind, and then suppose I flop either of my cards for top pair. There's a good chance I would have lost more than another 7,800. And that's really the hidden luck in poker. Sometimes the pots that you lose, but you could have lost more had you played them another way. So we can't be sure, but I wasn't too happy that I was now below the average stack with just 44K when the average was around 52. And then kind of a wild situation occurred where I opened with pocket fives from middle position, and then this tight German guy went all in for a little bit more, about half my stack. So I think I had opened to 2,600, and the German guy shoved for about 18K when I had only 44K in my stack. And of course, the rock called. He just cold calls the shove, and then the action folded all the way back to me, and it's a decision, right? He did reopen the betting, so I can shove and try to isolate the all-in player if I want to. But with pocket fives and thinking that there's a good chance we're just going to check it down, right? And also the rock was in, I think, the small blind. He was definitely out of position. I think he had cold called from the small blind. So I was thinking we're probably going to check this down and just try to bust this guy who is all in at this point. So I decided to call and putting in almost half my stack now with just a pair of fives. And I'm really hoping that we can check this down and maybe I can beat one or both of these guys with a pair of fives. I know this is dicey, and I know that this is a bit of an unusual and wild situation, but I'm telling you guys, I have a huge skill edge over this giant of a man. And so the flop came with all clubs. I think it was 9 high with all clubs, and the rock made a tiny bet, and I felt so much strength emanating from him. And I was trying to size him up. Like, why is this guy betting? There's no 5 out there, you know, like what's he doing? Is he trying to like bluff into a dry side pot? I think almost everybody knows not to do that anymore at this point. So I'm thinking he's either hit one of these cards, but I knew because it was all clubs, by the way, I had the 5 of clubs. So that made this a bit harder. Like, what if my flush draw is good? Should I just call this little bet and see what happens on the turn? And while I'm trying to decide, he says to me, hey, you know, win or lose, it's all fun and games. And once he said that, it was the easiest fold. Something about the way he said it, guys, I just knew that he had a monster. So I threw my hand away, and the rock turned over the ace, jack of clubs. So he flopped the nuts and was trying to milk me for all I'm worth. But I got away. Then I won a double up. I had a very short stack at that point, but I doubled it up again. I had pocket fours after a late position raise, and I shoved with I think I had maybe 12 big blinds, 13 big blinds against a guy in a scarf, and he looked mad, but he had to call off with ace tray offsuit, and the fours held. So I doubled up again there. Then I got into another pot against the rock where I opened with ace jack, and he called me from the big blind. The flop came king 7-5 rainbow, and he checked to me, and I c-bet for value, just 2K, and he made the call. The turn paired the king, so now it's king 7-5 king Badoogie. He checks, I checked back. The river deuce of hearts changed nothing, and he just leads for 6,000. And I felt strength. I know ace jack is good a lot in this spot, but I just felt that same strength that I felt before when he was talking to me and he had the nut flush. So I couldn't make the call. I threw my hand away. I'm trying to stay patient. Then I was really short stacked with 11 big blinds and got pocket eights all in 3 ways against pocket fives and ace 4 of diamonds. And I more than tripled up on that one. So that was great. And then after the dinner break, we came back to 1,500 and 3K, and we had 88K. So we were actually doing just fine. After that whole pre-dinner roller coaster, we came back to just below an average stack. I chilled for a while, but then I got into a spot with my Spaniard friend. So I was on the button and he opened from the cutoff, and I 3-bet him with king 10. And I think this is totally fine. You can also fold if you want, but that's a little nitty. You know, the opening range from the cutoff, especially a decent player, it's going to be fairly wide. And king 10 has pretty good blockers. So a lot of times we'll just take it down with our 3x 3-bet. But in this spot, he did make the call. And the flop came jack of clubs, jack of diamonds, 6 of clubs. And he checked to me, and I bet 1 big blind, which is something I'm learning from jaka.poker/TPE, Jaka Coaching. I'm learning about the spots when betting small is correct, and this is one of them. So I just bet 1 big blind. You don't have to bet that small, but you know it's okay to do so. So I went for the itty bitty, teeny weeny 3,000 bet into a pot that was now about 22,000, and he check raised me to 5K, and then I 3-bet him to 18K, and he called. So I thought he probably had nothing and that he's just check raising because, you know, that's the kind of guy he is. And you're supposed to check raise it a lot on these paired boards, you know, jack, 6 on the flop. It's very likely that nobody has anything. So it felt like a little bit of a game of chicken. But when he called my 3-bet, guys, I knew he was no longer fooling around. And so I gave up on the hand, and he ended up winning the pot with a bet on the river that I did not call with king high. So at one point in this same level, I was down to 42,000. So I lost half my stack again after dinner, partly from that bluff, but there were a few other things that didn't go my way. And I opened off of a 14 big blind stack, so 42,000 in my stack. And I opened from second position. I've got the king of diamonds, 10 of diamonds. Now, you don't need to shove this hand. That's too much. 14 big blinds. It might be profitable. Like if you look at one of the old-timey push-fold charts, I'm not sure. Maybe this hand is on it. Maybe it's not. But we can actually play pots with 14 big blinds. And so that's what I opted to do here. Just a min raise to 6,000. And of course, I got 3 callers. I should have known better at this table to even mess with this hand. But, you know, here we are. And so now there's a big pot with like 30,000 in it. And the flop comes queen of spades, jack of spades, 7 of spades. So I have top pair on a board that is all spades. And of course, I don't have a spade. I have queen 10 of diamonds. So I just shoved it all in. I only had 36K remaining in my stack. The pot was 30K. I have top pair, which is probably good even with 3 opponents. But of course, the guy who had just joined our table and I didn't have any type of read on, who was one of my callers, had pocket 7, so he flopped bottom set and I was drawing close to dead. And that was how that one turned out for me. I made my first dinner break of the summer, I believe, in that tournament. I've now made 4 in a row, by the way, which isn't really worth much. But I remember a summer not long ago when by the time I got to the main event, I hadn't even made 1 single dinner break. So if you think this summer's going badly, we have memories. Oh, do we ever? Sometimes when it rains, it pours. And so that's just what's been going on. But it is nice to look back at these hands. I'd like my play in these hands. I'm going to take a lot of the ones I haven't run yet and run them through solvers, maybe talk to some of them with my coach, Anton Wig, or possibly even submit them for the next round of member hands on Jocka Coaching. Another thing I'm planning on doing this week, at least once or twice, is going on my Twitch stream. I haven't been on there since we did the big giveaway, but that's going to change in the next few days, guys. Look for me on Twitch. Make sure you are at least following, if not subscribed, to my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. And that'll do it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a 5-star review wherever you might happen to be listening right now. That's something you can do for free that helps us out so much. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, with special thanks to our sponsor, Jocka Coaching, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas Plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Lock in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.